So
we're back.
it was a pretty good week to take off because Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, The Phantom Pain, and my God, I love that game so much.
Yeah.
We've kind of hyped it up a little bit, and I was excited for it, and I don't think I was prepared for how much I love it. Is it too soon to say this is one of my favorite games ever? Like, I'm 33 hours into it. Yeah, but I mean, like, just in terms
what if
of
it gets
just,
like really racist at the end?
I mean, I feel like it's already a little bit racist. I don't know. Just
There's at least one mission that's definitely a little bit racist. Yeah.
okay. Well, that's good to know. I made a horse poop on a guy's face while he was asleep, and then I stole him with a balloon. So, I mean, you know, I'm okay with recognizing that things can be problematic, but also awesome.
No, I don't think it's unfair to say you enjoy something very much, so much that you think, hey, this might be one of my favorite video games ever. Say it, and then like if you discover 6 weeks later you're wrong, then be like, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people did when they went to see Phantom Menace. You know, like, oh man,
Sure,
it's so great.
sure.
Oh,
It's one of my
great.
favorite films ever.
I mean,
Yeah,
I will say that I was really, really looking forward to the Phantom Pain, and I'm really still enjoying it. And it's kind of rare for me to be 33 hours deep, like marathoning something, and not feel like even slightly burnt out on it.
yeah. And this is it's for me the first game since probably Bloodborne that has inspired such awesome stories in the office of just people coming in and being like, oh man, this happened, and then you're like, I didn't even know you could do that in the game.
I was gonna say I didn't know that something could sort of hover up towards or possibly at times top Bloodborne for me this year. And I found myself really, really loving both of them, which is odd because I'm not a very, like, when it comes to video games, like, I love, like, goofy open world stuff. I love like, you know, stupid platforming games. Like, the other game I'm playing like crazy right now is Mario Maker, which is totally different than anything else out there. But Bloodborne and Metal Gear Solid 5 are both really obtuse in a lot of ways. Like, they kind of actively push people away in a lot of sections. Like, they don't do the greatest job of explaining their sub-menus or how to level up your weapons. Like, a lot of stuff in Bloodborne was just sort of like, oh, you die 100 times until you figure out that you don't have to do that same way anymore.
Yeah.
Figuring out your weapon loadouts and stuff like that in Bloodborne, very similar to Metal Gear in that, like, no one ever goes, this is the best way to do this. You know, one mission along, they're just, like, in Metal Gear, they were just like, hey, do you have a rocket launcher? Because you should probably get one by now. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's the thing I should do.
Yeah, totally. When I was playing, I was like, I think for the first 7 or 8 missions, I didn't realize that my armor was underneath my character appearance menu.
Yeah.
That made no sense to me. Why did my appearance affect my... So I'm like, why can't I put my armor on?
Yeah.
And I just finally go, it's like, oh, it's what I look like? Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that kind of obdurate design there, but I like that in a way because I'm always discovering things.
So I remember just I want to blame Japan for this, and not blame Japan, but just really accredit them for this because Japanese is a language that in writing reads in the opposite direction and sometimes reads up to down. Like it is fundamentally just structurally different in terms of syntax and how everything is arranged. And if you're making a menu which is taking text and using it as a means of navigating, it's. I feel like Japanese games are going to inherently have just bulkier menus, just by the nature of having.
If you trace the lineage from a lot of Japanese games, it's a lot of RPGs, sort of inspired as the sort of the skill tree that inspired every other video game creator to go on to make their own games. And you look at the Souls series, and you look at Metal Gear and stuff like that, and especially 5. It's just so sort of obtuse, and it takes some time to get in there and figure it out. And luckily, there's quick ways around it. Like spoilers, but you get a big base in Metal Gear, and you get all these guys, and you start sending them there, and you start assigning them to things, and it's really easy to get lost in all that stuff like that. There's all this sort of like tiny little micromanaging of stats that you wouldn't really think are in a game where a horse can poop on a sleeping guy and you can send him away in a balloon, but it's all there, and it's really weird. I find myself like, so Bloodborne is the first Souls game I ever played.
Yeah.
I played a little bit here and there in preview events. And Metal Gear, I played about half of 2. I played most of Twin Snakes. I played the first one, obviously. I played about the first 2 hours of 3 and the first hour of 4. Yeah. And none of it ever truly clicked with me. But this game, hot damn, it is just grabbing me. And it's, every now and then, we talked a little bit at the first hour of the game, it just goes, oh, well, there is a really weird story, and I don't understand anything that's going on. And then it sort of moves out of the way for you to just really enjoy the world that it's in. And I've gotten a lot. I was tweeting about how much I love the game, and a bunch of people asked me, like, if I never liked Metal Gear and I don't like stealth, should I play this? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
so
Go ahead.
it does something that I've been really hoping. Well, I've been hoping Assassin's Creed would gut itself for quite a few games now.
Yeah.
I feel like there are things that are just fundamentally just don't work. Like use the same button for everything, or just the way the kind of just some of the missions are just poorly assembled. You know, the approach to an open world are just kind of weird. And I think that the Phantom Pain is the first Metal Gear game that has basically had the kind of humility to just be like, we need to scrap a lot of stuff and rebuild it from the ground up.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 4, I mean, I played it. I thought it was technically really, really impressive, but it also felt like this weird kind of like they shaved pieces off of the traditional kind of Metal Gear formula to make it feel more modern, and it's more accessible because of that. It's like a twin stick shooter. You can go into first person.
Yeah.
The aiming is a lot more like you don't have to stop to aim.
Yeah.
But it still just didn't feel like it was quite there.
Yeah, and it also didn't feel like a singular vision. It almost felt like 5 different games.
Yeah.
Like if you would have told me that each chapter of 4 was directed by someone else, I would have totally believed you.
Yeah,
like
right.
going to Eastern Europe and having like the sneaky spy stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, like Metal Gear's, it's kind of like you look at Metal Gear Solid, the first one, and that is using like 3D and polygons to reinterpret what was on the MSX2 with Metal Gear 2, which was kind of an isometric top-down, not isometric, but like top-down kind of view, which works for stealth games. And then 2 rolls around and they're like, let's add some first-person stuff, but it still feels very clunky by today's standards.
Yeah.
3, they had to wait until Subsistence to add controlling your own camera, which is like going back to that and playing it without a free camera is just, it feels like having one of your hands tied behind your back. It's just kind of odd. And then I feel like 4 was kind of just still trying to keep pieces of that original formula in there. Phantom Pain just feels like a brand new game from the ground up. Like,
It's a very effective evolution of Peace Walker. I mean, that's the other bit. We've got these 4 numbered ones in the series, but you do see a lot of the ideas that were kind of roughed out in Peace Walker, smoothed off and turned into something logical. And you combine that with what you mentioned, going all the way back to the MSX2. So this is a big open world game, but something it does that very few open world games does is yes, you've got all the space, but really it's a series of nodes. A series of lures to draw you in. Areas where things are happening, broken up by wide open space that's mostly used for observation and planning.
Yeah.
But everything's happening around the nodes.
I love
exactly.
so much.
So it's still pulling you into artfully, thoughtfully designed areas where you're doing largely unscripted interactions. And that is a really great fusion of Peace Walker and then the earlier Metal Gear themes that you were talking about there coming together in an absolutely unique way, and it just works so well. I can't think this game reminds me almost more of Crackdown than anything else, not because it's arcadey and jumpy around, but because it's like, here's a point, here's everything around the point, go do something about that point.
Yeah.
And
so that's why you mentioned Assassin's Creed, and I actually, if you had asked me a few years ago, like, do you like stealth games? I would have said no. And then I sort of realized that I play a lot of them. And then I go, yeah, well, maybe I do, because I like the ones that are stealth games. Always meant sort of like, to me, the early Splinter Cell games, which were your gun was basically just like the tranquilizer gun.
It was a pea shooter.
It was nothing. And if you alerted anybody, you had to restart the entire thing. Stealth games since then have become so much more forgiving, and in that, like, you can get 90% into a mission in Metal Gear Solid 5 and get spotted, and then all of a sudden it's a Call of Duty level. The first hour of it are different. But I think the reason that Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs and a bunch of the open world attempted stealth games don't work the way this one does is because you are a citizen in those games in a bustling world full of people who are totally okay with you walking by them. Whereas Metal Gear there are 2 main characters in that, or 2 outside of yourself. There is the constant threat of the enemy, which is pretty much 95% of the population of the world. And then there is the environment, which is a real pain in the ass sometimes. And sometimes it's a pain in the ass to traverse. Sometimes in the most serendipitous moments, it just works in your favor, where you are, I'm sure you guys have all experienced this, but you're invading this base camp and there's 15 guys and you're like, there's no way I'm pinned in this corner. There's nothing I can do. And all of a sudden you get this thing over your comm that's like, sandstorm approaching. And a sandstorm comes in, and all of a sudden the entire world is blind to you.
Yep.
And you can get in there and do as much as you need to do, but it stops you from sending people out on balloons because they won't fly away. So it makes you rethink everything. So you can go in, knock down all of your targets, hide a bunch of bodies. The sandstorm clears, and everybody's like, what the hell was that?
Exactly. Although that can also come back to bite you. I had
Right.
one of those wonderful moments. I'm like, yes, and I lay down flat after I've done all my cool stuff and the storm clears, and I look next to my head and there's a pair of walker feet.
Yeah.
Just next to my head.
Yeah.
And just kind of look up and there's the exclamation point and the Gatlings go off in missions. And so it can work so many. I love that there's no script for this.
Yeah.
That these moments just happen and happen and happen again. It's one of the best storytelling games I think I've ever played.
That's the funny thing is, like, I think a lot of people who were expecting the sort of pomp and just long-winded story nature of the Metal Gear games might be disappointed, because that's not what the main story is here. The main story is the things we create with the tools that are in the world, and like our stories are the main stories of the game. Like, yeah, it does like further it bridges the gap between Big Boss's story and Snake's.
If you get into the post game, there's more of that.
Yeah.
If you're frustrated by that, finish the game, get to the post game.
Sure.
There's plenty of story.
But it's cool. I feel weird coming into this franchise where I'm at right now, because it's sort of like going to a place that they've been, you go to like a restaurant that they've been working on for 25 years, and the menu's fantastic now. But they're like, oh, the first few years we were open, none of the burners worked, and the door was always creaky, and all the tables had sticky on them, and you're just like, well, everything's awesome now. Like, sorry you guys went through all those troubles back then, but
well, I really love how it feels like it might as well be the first Metal Gear game remake.
Yeah.
It's so close to it. Like, the first Metal Gear starts up, and you're like, Snake, go in here. You've got to get the boss or something. And they're like, I feel asleep. Oh no, dogs, and it's just like, what is this game? Like, and it was all that back then was like, hey, what if you took 80s Reagan era American action movies and infused them with anime influences?
Yeah.
And it's taking that, but it's doing them, and it looks like one of those movies.
Yeah.
I was sneaking into some base, and I was just like, I've always loved the aesthetic of the old Metal Gear games, almost more than the modern ones, just because it's got that kind of like that genuine, like, you can imagine that Snake is Michael Biehn or Tom Berenger or something.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell, obviously, though he is totally like Tom Berenger in the box art.
Yeah. What is
He
the
just
guy's
has
name?
Snake Plissken's gun.
Right. He just has Snake's gun there otherwise. And Sean
Or
Connery's
Michael
big
Biehn. Yeah,
boss. and all
he's
the
John Connor or whatever. But he's just like, he is that 80s action hero, and this is the first game where I feel like that.
Yeah.
Like you think like the beginning of like True Lies or something, where he's like sneaking into this base and he's like, knocking guys' heads together and like just unzipping the sneaking suit, and it's a tuxedo underneath. And it's just like, this game just nails that feeling of just like the searchlight coming over and you're like just face down in the mud, just
so
like a
tense.
badass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the beginning of The Rock, which is like what the beginning of Metal Gear is, and it just I love it. Like, it's the combination of everything that made me just so happy when I was 10 years old, which was like playing Manhunt in my friend's backyard and like avoiding his motion sensor porch light.
Yeah, you were
when
saying
I was sneaking around.
You were saying that it feels like it's like hide and seek for adults. Because
exactly.
we can't play that as adults
exactly.
because you get arrested.
Yeah.
That's what I love about video games, is that they allow you to do things that you did when you were a kid, but that you could also only get away with when you're a kid.
Yeah.
I could also go run around in my backyard with a stick and pretend I was fighting skeletons and dragons, and now I can't really get away with that without looking like I'm on PCP. So that's why I love Skyrim. I also used to play like hide and seek tag, and now I've got Metal Gear, and it's scratching that itch, and it makes me so happy. And at the same time, it also feels like I'm in The Rock or Terminator or Escape from New York or whatever, any one of these awesome old movies I grew up with, and it's also got robots, which is great.
Yep.
Rankly sentimental. That's really kind of beautiful. And
Yep.
I love that thought. I'm really
Yeah.
glad you said that.
Anyway, I really want everyone to play this game, and amazingly enough, we actually we have been given a code for.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. What's
Our
this?
buddy Yuichi,
Yes,
over
who-
from
yeah.
Konami, has grabbed us a code.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks, man.
Yeah, Yuichi's a nice dude.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
He also made the really cool IGN logo on his mother base.
Oh,
with
that's
the,
right, yeah.
with the emblem.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen that's like a part of the game I haven't even gotten into.
Oh, there's so much of that. There's
I
so many
know.
crazy things you keep finding. Just like, what?
Mine just says Octopus Bear, but it's in like Miami Vice colors.
Yeah.
So what's the plan
awesome.
for giving that away? What are we?
That's a good question. How do you like? Should we do like write us an email and tell us why you deserve Metal Gear, or should we do like a question or like a something?
Yeah, it's hard because we can't be like, tell us your favorite Metal Gear 5 story, because it's like, well, you already.
Yeah.
How about this? If you were going to name D-Dog anything but D-Dog, what would you name him? What's best puppy?
That's a good.
That's a solid question.
Yeah.
Solid question. Best puppy
I like
name.
it.
Email us at beyond@ign.com.
Yep.
Subject line
D-Dog?
D-Dog.
Yep.
Just give us the best puppy name.
Cool.
The one that we use
I,
just as
I
most.
kind of hate you guys
What's that?
because we were gonna get thousands of emails.
Yeah, but they're just
with
dog names.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and here's the other thing: is you can't write anything else. There's got to be a dog name in there
Did I-
because we
did I
got to
ever-
go through all these. Don't be like, if I had the dog and I was gonna train him to do the thing, let me explain my. Just write the name of the dog, and a joke should tell
Yeah,
itself. So
Did I tell you guys? Ever tell you guys the Halo haiku story?
No, but I can't.
still
Oh,
get
and you
yours,
still
yeah.
get emails?
So Will Tuttle, who's my old boss at GameSpy, and he did this thing once where he was just like, "Hey, we got this beta code for Halo, whatever the hell Halo it was then 7 years ago," and he goes, "Yeah, send us a haiku to podcast@gamespy.com," which was also the email alias we used for the GameSpy briefings, which was the podcast we were on at the time, and we got hundreds. Like people, I didn't even know people did this, or knew listened to it. So they wrote in, but then they also wrote in for years to come with just things that weren't even haikus at all. Think about the kind of guy that listens to, that reads through a
Roses
contest.
are red, violets are
Yeah.
blue.
The
I
kind
like
of person
Master
that
Chief.
responds to a contest 3 years too
Okay,
late.
so if you
Lot
are
of dogs.
hearing this contest announcement and it is past Sunday, September 13th, 2015, whatever time zone, any time zone, that's the deadline. So just if you've heard it and it's after that time, then don't email us
Stop
a dog
it.
name.
Stop it.
Don't
Stop it.
Just
bad
send
dog.
just
Bad
send
dog,
haikus
no
to
biscuit.
Brian. That's
Who's
all.
a bad dog? You're
Write
a
the
bad
dog name on your forehead and look in the mirror.
Yeah. So on the note of Phantom Pain, just a PSA from Konami: don't use quiet on missions 29 or 42 because it could corrupt your save file. I'm 33 hours in. I'm on mission 15.
What's your percentage?
18%?
Yeah.
18, 19%?
I'm 20 something hours in and I'm 10% done.
Yeah, how much have you put in, Jared?
I have easily played this game over 100 hours at this point. And there's a lot there still. Those 42 missions are main story missions. There's also, I think, 150 side ops, something like that.
Yeah, 152, I think.
You could get a knife
and-
that you could put on your dog.
I already
and
have
dogs
that.
and-
It's awesome.
But understand, you don't actually have to play all of those story missions to get all the story. Some of them are challenge missions that you're going to unlock. Like you'll have earlier versions of missions, but you have to do them assistant style, where you're dropped in naked
Yeah.
and have to scrounge all your gear, or you have to do perfect stealth version. Not all of those have to be complete. We've got a thing on the guide right now about, hey, here are the missions you absolutely have to play to unlock all the story.
On IGN's guide, right?
Yeah, that IGN guide.
That you specifically busted your ass on. I was using that a little over the weekend, just looking at the.
A lot like the
did any
mother-based
of it
stuff is
help?
super helpful. The
Yeah, the
mother-based
mother-based
stuff,
stuff is great. I think because, like I said, the game doesn't really do a great job of explaining stuff to you, so it's good to have you guys around.
We're trying to add more. There's a lot. It's been John and I and Brennan have pretty much all been on it for a while now. So
I would
and
say
I know
if
there's
you-
still some holes.
Yeah.
but we're
Have you
working
guys
on
done like a starter guide?
it. Yeah, a couple
Yeah.
of
I am
matches.
I am desperately resisting the urge to check any of that, but it's really reassuring to know it's all there.
Yeah, so cool. And Beyond Guy says, if you got any questions about the game, send them in. Let us know. That'll help us fill in the wiki, please. It's good to know where the pain points
Also,
are.
I think this corrupted save file thing is going to be fixed at some point.
Oh, yeah,
soon.
totally.
I wouldn't
They're
be
not gonna
surprised
just
by
leave
next
it.
episode. Yeah, 'cause that is terrifying. The idea of putting in that many hours and then 50 hours in, it corrupts the file. Like,
Although they're just Konami's just like, yeah, no, it's cool. We've got all our employees at Kojima Productions hard at work on. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Anyone?
This is really frightening me because for the guide, I was using Quiet in Mission 29. I just lucked out. So, yay.
Look at you,
that would have
man.
been really, really bad.
Yeah.
Living on the edge.